Have you, as a founder, ever sat down intentionally with one of your customers just to hear their side of the relationship, learn what they really love and appreciate about you, your team, your products and services, and what keeps them really happy? Too many founders are focused on the features and the change they want to see versus really understanding what is keeping their customers happy and coming back. Being too rigid about this leads to building a business that is very tough to scale. But there is an easier way. I'm John Hill, aka Small Mountain, and on this episode of the Founders Growth Show, I'm sitting down and talking to Chief Customer Officer Noah Hallett. And we're unpacking why true business growth relies entirely on what happens after the contract is signed. We dig into proactive versus reactive customer service and how to stop fires before they spark, the struggle bus client reframe, why your most critical high friction users are actually helping you build a better business, in the hidden data pipeline, how to find customer feedback directly and feed that back into your sales and marketing process to keep churn as low as you can possibly make it. As a founder, you can't afford to look at retention as a siloed problem for a support team to handle. If your front end marketing does not match up with the human experience on the back end, it's going to be very hard to market and scale a business. Let's fix it. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm really excited to connect with you. I know we've had a couple of conversations and we got some really cool, meaty areas to kind of dive into to help other founders. But can you take a quick second, talk about the work that you're doing at Go Bolder, just as like a broad overview, and then we'll dig in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a customer success or a startup consultant, excuse me. So focused on customer success, and I work as a fractional CCO, so a chief customer officer, where a lot of the time I'll come into a company and I will actually build out the entire customer success function, help recruit people and train them to be full time, and then step out once they're ready to step in and take over the role full time. So I especially work with rapid scaling startups that are suddenly having that delightful influx of customers and can't figure out how to deal with that, right? The note taking's not set up, the workflows aren't set up, the processes aren't set up.
Hmm.
And so I do a lot of that. Now, right now, we're going to talk about this more, but I just recently moved from the US to Europe. I now live in Lisbon, Portugal, which is delightful. And a lot of the companies I'm working with here, both in the US and from here, are very early stage. So it's both some of the customer success prep for later, but then also helping them figure out how to stand out in a field that's become very crowded with AI coding and a lot of the different tools out there doing the same things.
Epic. Very cool. Okay, so I've got a bunch of stuff I'm curious about, right? We were kind of talking before we hit record, and you kind of hit upon this really beautiful nugget. Can you quickly, just for everyone who's listening who is not really sure about the difference, can you talk about your definition on the split between customer service and customer success?
And I don't like to make too fine a point of it, but it's something that comes up a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to be totally blunt, one of the biggest differences is budget.
Mm,
But
that's
customer
fair.
support is typically reactive, where people come to you, you answer the questions that fall in your lap, and then you act on it within that frame, but you don't go chasing after them, right? Whereas customer success is all about very much like that hands-on service where you try to track down the problems and reach out and solve them before they actually become problems. It's very much proactive, where you're trying to find the people who aren't talking to you, you're trying to solve the problems that aren't problems yet, trying to go out to people with things they'll be excited about rather than just putting out fires.
Mm-hmm.
There is a ton of crossover. And for me personally, I find that customer success and customer service do their best work if they're very closely woven together. But from a team-wise and function perspective, the two of them get conflated a lot, and that's led to a lot of confusion. So something like so teams tend to not work as well if there's not like a clear, distinct line where one does one and one does the other.
Mm-hmm. And a second ago, you talked about being like a chief customer officer, right? CCO,
Yes.
right? And it's interesting because I, for a long time, I kind of felt that, we have CMOs, a lot of people have CROs, CSOs, right? All these revenue focused people. And I don't really see many people really thinking about like a CCO, don't like kind of put it at
Right.
at that same tier and everything. Is that changing? Like, or is that part of the change that you're trying to drive through your consulting and working with clients?
Part of it's trying to drive it, but I'm also riding something that I'm not going to take full credit for that, certainly, because customer success has been kind of the backbone of SaaS since the two were around. So that software as a
Mm,
service, SaaS is really built on proactive customer support that then was labeled as customer success.
interesting.
And then in terms of like marketing, in terms of revenue, in terms of I think you mentioned the chief marketing officer, and I've seen like the CFO, the chief financial officer, are very common areas where you see fractional professionals. Um, but you also have to think about like, where does the money come from? Like, why does the CFO have money if the contracts come from people, they come from sales? There's always a human element to it that can easily be kind of overwritten.
Hmm.
And I look at it as, I personally approach this from that larger umbrella as chief customer officer, because it's not just customer success. It's not just customer support. It's not just sales or marketing. There's a human element to everything. And it's really important to have that kind of holistic view. Of course, my focus is customer success, but a lot of that is, my terrible metaphor is always that customer success is being the spider at the center of the web, right? You touch everything, every single part of the organization, and you feel the vibrations of the web, and then you respond to it by connecting the other threads to that, right? So earlier this morning, I was having a conversation about making a marketing ad that would best resonate with a specific group of customers, like that would make sense to this company's customers. And then I was also talking to my wife about something I'm talking about more in depth, about the concept of keeping the seat warm. So the one is this front end marketing, and the other is she had this app that she downloaded, and it was all about her presets, like her personalization inside this app. She'd uninstalled it. She was going back to it. When she reinstalled it, all of her presets were gone. So this stuff that she had put work into and why she used it was gone. And so
Hmm.
her seat wasn't warm. So she just uninstalled it because she didn't want to waste the time a second time. And that's the kind of like small gap that's easy to fill in with just a
Oh
little bit
yeah.
of extra effort. If anyone's there to think about like, what is the user experience if this happens?
So, okay, so that kind of brings me to an interesting point. How closely is the work you're doing to like user experience stuff, like UX, UI, build out? Like, is there a lot of overlap between those, or not? Not really so much.
There's a ton of overlap, especially right now when we talk about the big conversation. The elephant in the room is automation, like AI automation, making sure that the machine runs really smoothly. Everything can be done with as little human touch as possible.
Yeah.
The thing is, you have to test that. You got to make sure it's working. You have to make sure it makes sense.
Hmm.
And the more foolproof it is, the more user friendly it is, the more people are able to use it unassisted, the better you're able to actually automate it. Like, you remove the roadblocks before they become roadblocks. And so, yeah,
Hmm.
there's a big element of it. It's UI, UX. I'm not a
Okay.
designer. I'll go ahead and own that. So I can't necessarily speak to the best branding or colors, but I can speak to that human experience. Like, what is somebody going to see when they get into this? How are they going to struggle with it? What's going to
Yeah.
make them bounce off? And so that's a big part of the conversation now. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm gonna percolate on that because I'd like to
Yeah.
switch gears a little bit, and I'd like to talk about the moving to Portugal. Had you already started this business and then done the move, or did you make the move and then start the business?
It's a little of both. So I've been a sole contributor, individual contributor in customer success for the better part of 10 years. So I've been
Oh,
full time with several different companies in that time. And I've slowly scaled up my individual side consultancy over that time. But the move to Portugal, yes, is when it's gone from a side hustle or something I did in my spare time, it was sort of building into being my full time. So a whole
epic.
different level of communication and presentation, a whole different level of focus. So yes, so there's a significant ramp up now versus what I was doing most recently.
I'd like to zero in on that because like I've never moved out of the country before, right? And it feels like a lot of hoop jumping and keeping plates in the air and to use your thing, keeping these seats warm so that way we can get you can get it all done. And the business
Yep.
is often kind of similar, right? Like spinning plates, you got to keep them in the air, you got to dial all these things. Did it did trying to move at the same time as launch this thing make it harder for you, or do you think it just kind of like put you into that mode of like we just got to get it all done, so hyper focus, let's just stay like very much in like a task mode and just keep plugging?
There's a lot to unpack there. So the short answer is, of course, moving internationally across the ocean made it all much easier. Little sarcasm. No, it did not.
I was like, wow, that
So,
is not what I was
no,
expecting.
it's really funny. There's so many things that go into that you don't realize there's going to be obstacles until they come up, right?
Hmm.
So it was quickly apparent how much of my professional network was geographically focused, just in terms of time zone, in terms of if somebody's hiring somebody for contract, they will typically put a time zone limit or a geographic limit. Like, this is remote, but US only.
Hmm.
Um, and I wasn't fully aware how big or how common that was until we did the move and then started popping up. And then, like,
Okay.
the silliest little things, like your phone number is something that you may think about, but you may not. You move abroad, you need a local phone number, but you also need to maintain your international one for working with international or home country customers.
Yeah.
Um, And then even things like after we'd been here for 6 months, Google just popped up, was like, hey, we noticed you moved to a new country. We're going to move all of your domains to the EU or .pt Portugal domain. Um, which briefly was a little worrisome because I was like, what is this going to change? It's one of those
Yeah.
things I'd never thought of. It turns out very little, but some.
So, okay,
Um,
I, uh, I just have a question about that. So Google sends you an email and says like, "Hey, we see that you're in Europe now, so we're just going to change your domain suffixes." Like
yep.
it wasn't like, "Hey, would you like to?" It was like, "No,
Nope.
we're just going to do this."
Yeah. And if I was consistently using a VPN that would always masking my exact location, which I probably should, if I was always doing that, it probably wouldn't have come up. But as it is, I
Whoa.
was just browsing the internet. I was living here. So now if I go to YouTube, it's youtube.pt. So it's got the PT extension. I get served
Interesting.
ads in Portuguese. I get served like local radio ads in Portuguese,
Yeah.
um, which is natural. You'd expect that. And it's actually been a really helpful way to learn Portuguese, actually.
That's very
um,
interesting. Okay.
yeah.
Um,
Yes. So it's been both more and less of an obstacle than I thought. And one last point on that, and then I'll move on.
please. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, for the move, obviously we knew it was going to be a lot. Like we packed up our entire life of 10 years and 2 kids. We sold the house, we sold 2 cars, we packed everything into 6 suitcases was our limit. And up to the last like 24 hours before we were going, to the last like 6 hours, really, we were weighing our suitcases down to the ounce because there was an exact weight limit. So we'd be like pulling out, like a sock or something. I was like, this is a really heavy sock. Will that make the difference? Yes, it turns out. Um,
Wow.
yeah. So we were able to pack quite a bit with us, but it really was a significant declutter.
Mm,
Um, and for that, and then so many other reasons, we did intentionally protect our time. So we didn't hustle as much as we could have. We didn't, my wife and I both have our own independent work. We didn't take on a bunch of commitments over the first couple months because we knew it was going to be incredibly busy. And it's
mhm.
lucky we did that because we just wouldn't have been able to deliver at the time.
Yeah, that
Um,
makes sense.
yeah. So we had a bit of a gap and that was a ramp after it, but really it was a really, really fun process. And I'm glad we did that. But I do that you do feel a lag. I'm sure you felt this too as an independent operator. If you take some time off, you do feel it takes a while to make up that time. It's not just
Yeah.
one to one. You don't just pick up again. You still have to like reboot the funnel. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
which
like,
is what we've been doing.
I try to tell like I it's weird because I tell everybody like to try to do a little bit every day, right?
Yeah.
But that also leads to, I've had seasons to where like I'll just blow past summer vacation because I'm just like so focused on like this week and this month and this little bitty window of time that I'm working on. Um and so like sometimes it's just easier for me to be like, you know what, let's just keep pushing, right? Because I don't want
Yeah.
that lag, right? But I think if you adjust your planning with these ideas in mind, you can proactively get ahead of it, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because you got to have the time off. You need to have the time away. This is all way too hard to just saddle yourself with endless toil, right? Like, I mean, it's not going to be beautiful when you start. You're going to have to figure things out. There's going to be some stress and some struggle and everything. But like, it shouldn't be that like you're going to have to be saddled with this every day for forever, right? Like no, like
Yeah.
it's crazy. But I've had versions of that, and I see a lot of people get stuck with that idea because it like I think on the first tier of this, you're not even aware that taking a break is going to have an impact like later on down the pipeline. Right now, salespeople do, right? But if you don't come
Yeah.
from sales, and a lot of founders don't, you don't understand that like this gap that you're experiencing today was from 6 weeks ago when you just decided to like take a cool like a 2 week break from networking and outreach and putting yourself out there, right? And
Yeah.
so that's the first season, like learning that time too much time away is going to have huge impact. And then there's a season of like, well, we're just going to get very consistent, and that's where things kind of grow up around you a little bit, I would say. um,
Yeah.
but adding a move on top of all of this is just kind of like a flooring thing to even think about. So, I think a lot of people, they get really enamored with the idea of like starting a business, living anywhere in the world that they want and things like this. And I had my version of that. And then I realized I just like all my stuff too much, right? I don't, I like
Yeah.
6 suitcases were giving me like anxiety. And my wife, who's going to edit this, when she's thinking about 6 suitcases versus all of her books, like is probably gonna sweat a little bit, like just even watching this. So
I have feedback on that point. A
please,
personal
yeah,
note too. I had,
yeah,
I feel very similarly about books. So in the house I grew up in, it was my grandparents' house that I grew up like my parents, grandparents, and my brother and I all lived together. And they had these beautiful walls where they had built-in bookshelves that were like 10 feet tall and like
Mm.
12-foot square in 2 different rooms, I think, just
Oh yeah.
massive. So I grew up learning to love books, and they had like this lit sconce where they had like an encyclopedia and a dictionary with like lights on top. Like what this is very classic
Oh.
setup. Yes, so I do love books, and I'd already kind of downgraded my collection a couple times, but
Hmm.
I had a few books that I genuinely loved, and it was one small bookshelf because we'd
Oh.
lived in where we were in Little Rock for 10 years, so we had plenty of
Hmm.
time to accumulate stuff, and hadn't
Oh.
during a lot of that, we didn't really assume that we would move. We thought that was going to be where we were going to settle indefinitely.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
I did have this book collection, and one big part of the move was like actually filling the trunk of our car, completely filling the trunk of the car before I sold it. And this is a wagon. And driving to this awesome little bookstore that a friend of mine had helped me discover recently. And I was like, all right, guys, I'm going to need some help carrying this, but this is all for you. And I like gave this like really sweet little independent bookstore all of these books. And they were
No
so excited,
way.
and that helped with the heartbreak of giving up the books. It was really, that was a sweet experience. Like, love that little bookstore. It was incredibly helpful to see the reaction that they had to seeing those books too, as they were excited to get them, and
Oh
that made
my
it easier.
god. Dude, I've got goosebumps just thinking about that, right? Um I mean, used bookstores are like, very near and dear to my heart. My wife worked at one for a very long time before coming, here to work with me on this thing. And so hearing those stories, right, of, finding gems, right, in someone's trunk and stuff like that is just such a cool thing. And just the idea of like, I'm not going to try to sell them. I'm just going to go give them away. Like, were you thinking that it was going to like make it lighter to just go give it away? Or was it just like, I don't have the time to deal with like selling them and like, I just need it done?
I mean, it's not like they had monetary value necessarily, right? I wasn't sitting on any first edition manuscripts of like the Dead Sea Scrolls or something like that. So I
Sure.
had some books that I personally felt very connected to and I thought
Hmm.
were really cool, and I knew other collectors would like them. But if I sold these, it'd be like $6 a pop, maybe, for a book. So it just
Yeah.
wasn't worth the time and effort to pack and ship them. But it was, again, like really, really nice to be able to give them to a store where they would find new homes and with
Yeah.
people who were as excited about them as I was. Like, that still made a difference. And to really double down on the stress point before I back it off, that's 6 suitcases for the entire family of 4. So I had one.
Yeah.
It was a big one, but it was one suitcase.
So, you mentioned a second ago, uh, one bookshelf, right?
Mhm.
I'm curious, like when you think about the books that you brought with you, I would love 1, 2, or 3 that made the cut, that were so good that you couldn't part with them. They had to make the journey. They had to take up space in the suitcase. Like any one of them jump to mind? I'm just curious.
Oh God, you're putting me on the spot here. My reading is not something I'm particularly proud of. I read a lot. I do serious reading most of the time. So my like hobby reading is pulpy sci-fi.
Same,
So
same.
this is gonna be good. But so there were a handful of books. I think I mentioned this in our earlier conversation too. So there was the suitcase. I talked about us pulling things out of it to the very last second.
Hmm.
It became clear that there was a certain amount of stuff that we had cleared out of the house, decided not to get rid of, wanted to hang on to, that just wasn't going to fit in the weight limit. So I have one box of extra overflow stuff that's sitting in my in-laws closet right now. And I consider it my emotional support box, just knowing that that is there. That, like, trimming down to that one suitcase, I still have a little bit of extra sentimentality in this little cardboard box.
Hmm.
And there are a couple books in there, 1 or 2. And then there's one that comes to mind that I gave to a friend because he would like it as much as I did. And so that it was like one of these books that's like this thick. Is a good one.
Yeah.
Um,
What was it?
and that was the Night Lord's Omnibus, which is a Warhammer 40K fiction book.
Oh man, you are super nerd.
Like,
Like,
yeah, no, I told you this is not something I'm necessarily proud of, but I swear by the writing. Like, there's this one author, I'm going to shout him out by name, Aaron Dembski Bowden. Aaron Dembski Bowden is one of the writers for Games Workshop's Warhammer, and the way that he writes flowery descriptions of stuff is just phenomenal. Like, the
holy
way that he'll
smokes.
pour 3 pages into describing like somebody's glove when it really matters. It's an important glove. Like, it is just, that's my favorite kind of reading. And it's, if I'm going to get into a book and read it, that's where we go.
Epic. We will put a link to that in the show notes. I've never read anything in that lane. Like I'm a big sci-fi fantasy guy. Have been for a long time. Read a lot of business books now because of this lane. But I mean, Heinlein, Philip K. Dick, all of that stuff. I get really into that stuff, and most people don't, which is fine. But I got a little excited when you mentioned you're a sci-fi nerd. Um,
Yeah. So to throw that out, I did have the Caves of Steel series. I did have Caves of Steel, the book. What was it then? The Foundation series, and
mhm,
then I had Dune, of course. I had a couple books in there.
sure,
Those
yeah,
are ones that I chose to keep too. But the ones that I
epic.
really hung on to were the pulpy, crappy ones. Um, there was
I
another
love
series that I
that.
really love and would love to actually. The one that I would probably get back is the Children of Time series. So two books I'll drop out by name.
Children
There's
of
Aaron
Time.
Dembski
Okay.
Bowden's First Heretic. So that was that Warhammer book. That I think is like my favorite by a mile, and it is a really good introduction to his writing in that story.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, won't go into that. The other one is Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I'm very proud that I remembered that. Sorry, Adrian. But that's a really, really good book. And it's just really incredible, especially coming from this like customer success, customer service piece, because that book is all about like parallel civilizations evolving together and how they end up reconnecting at the end. Brilliantly
Oh,
written. I love that one.
rad.
And I have a degree in biology, so the crossover just like kept going. But Children of Time, even more importantly, Children of Ruin, the sequel. And the reason why on that one is I never knew how much my life needed hearing a super intelligent octopus describe the sensation of flying her spaceship until I read it. Like that is now my life is complete now that I have that piece.
I'm
And
not going to be productive for like the
we
rest
can
of this
talk.
month.
We
Like
can
I'm just
stop
going to
this
be,
subject anytime.
I'm
Yeah,
going to
and
be
so that
over here
it's
reading about octopuses piloting spaceships or something. This is going to be truly wild. Thank you,
this
my friend.
this is seared in my memory. There's a couple things here, but this is seared in my memory that this octopus pilot describes this ship. And this is the thing about these books is it dives really deep into what it would be like if an octopus tried to translate their thoughts into human language. Like it goes in there. Um, and I believe the way she described this ship was this little piece of heaven that is mine was like the full description of that fighter ship and just was such a sweet little
Wow.
anyway.
Okay, dude. I'm very excited to check this out, and I will come back to you after I consume it so we can have some cool conversations about it. So in the process of moving the business over and everything, right? How much research did you do about where to go? Was it like we were set on Portugal, or was it just like, hey, we want to go do something, and so you did some research? Like, how did you find the place to go? What did that look like?
So we knew we wanted to leave Little Rock. And honestly, the biggest reason was schools. We were really concerned about the quality and level of education our kids were getting. And in a lot of the sole contributor roles I had, I was working with public education, public schools, in communication, physical security, and just sort of software related to public schools. And I've always had this really strong, like deep-seated love of the public school system. So this was especially heartbreaking for me. But we knew that we were going to leave. We knew we wanted to move somewhere, and we were looking at like the best places to raise kids, like all the best possible options. And my wife got this really, really detailed spreadsheet from a friend of hers that broke down like childhood outcomes, childhood safety, days of sunshine, like all of these different general quality of life metrics, cost of
Hmm.
living, of course, um, in all these different categories, and compared like 7 or 8 different US cities down to like a short list. It was the short list of like the top cities. And we looked at that list and compared kind of where our family and connections were and where we wanted to move.
Hmm.
And then while we were looking at this, we were like, you know what? Why not throw in some international destinations as well? Like, who knows? We'll see.
Was
And then,
so I'm curious about that mode right there, right? You're looking at the spreadsheet, you're looking for US cities. Were you not seeing things that you were liking? So let's open it up. Was it like, oh, well, maybe we could look at cities that like, was it a big level change to expand outside of the US?
there were a lot of factors that influenced that. A couple of things. Number one was that we're big travelers as a family. We love to travel, and having the opportunity to raise the kids in a place where they could become dual citizens and then could grow up speaking multiple languages was a big draw. Like
Hmm.
it's to be able to give them that kind of life, even though that's extra work, it's definitely harder to give them that kind of opportunity to have a much more open world than we had is something that we really wanted to be able to do.
Hmm.
So that was a big incentive. We really did like a lot of the US cities we were looking at, and we were finding options there. We did enjoy that a lot, but we were curious. This is good for the US. If we were to pick the best, safest possible place in the world, where would it be? Turns out it's Copenhagen or
Hmm.
Japan. I think Tokyo was the top of the list. Like
Oh,
those two
wow.
were the top. And we're like, the immigration system doesn't necessarily work there, but what are some alternatives in the top 10?
Mm.
And so that was kind of looking at the list, figuring out where made the most sense. It was a combination of all of our categories in terms of like quality of life, kid childhood outcomes, schools, and all that, plus what immigration programs could we actually get into. So that took our short list and knocked a couple right off of it.
Interesting.
During this entire process, I was rooting for Portugal personally because every other option had very long winters and a lot of snow, which I wasn't down with.
Mm.
Um, and then also we did come to Portugal in 2021. We did just a trip. We had heard of the country, you knew a little bit about, we didn't know very much. So we came to Portugal, flew into Lisbon, did a whole road trip around the country and absolutely loved it. Like it was just this incredible trip. And it
Hmm.
really stood out as an amazing country with just so much in it. And we went to some of the top tourist places and also a lot of places where tourists don't generally go. Like we're still talking about that trip living here, and most of the people we talked to are fairly well traveled and they've never even heard of the places that we went.
Oh, wow.
Um, but yeah, but at the end of the trip, we'd flown into Lisbon, driven out immediately, and we were driving in to fly out of Lisbon and realized that we caught COVID. So we were not
Oh,
feeling well, so we took a COVID test, 2021, and then found out that we tested positive and we wouldn't be able to leave for another like 10 days. So
oh,
we had to extend our trip for another better part of 2 weeks.
yeah.
And we actually got the experience of quietly living in Lisbon, like spending our time outdoors, enjoying the parks and the outdoor kiosks. Like, and we had just this wonderful time experiencing the day to day without an itinerary, without rushing around. We didn't have to move hotels every other night. We were just here living in this town. And it
Hmm.
was awesome. Like just that brief experience, especially coming right out of COVID in 2021,
Yeah.
that was a really memorable, formative time. And so because of that and a couple other things, I was definitely rooting for Portugal from the start. And once we
Oh,
started going through the categories on the spreadsheet, it very quickly stood out.
interesting. So, okay, I have a couple of questions about that. If we could, would it have been on the top of the list if you'd not had? Because like I think of traveling is very different than like habitating, right?
Right.
And being an entrepreneur or being in a remote role, like huge fan of like going for a longer period of time. Like you're not really going to get to know like a city or an area in like a 3-day weekend, in my opinion. And I think people set themselves up for failure doing that kind of stuff. Do you think if it hadn't been for that period, you would have been as excited about Portugal?
Based just on the vacation we took, it probably would have been good. Had we never been here, like I've never been to Copenhagen, that was high on the list.
Yeah.
I've never set foot in Italy. My wife has, but I've never been to Italy. So
Hmm.
we were still excited about the prospect, even without the like depth of experience we had here. And one of
Okay.
the reasons I was rooting for Portugal is the startup scene. Like the economic movement and the startup scene in Portugal is just a huge draw for anyone who's like in the tech startup space. It's like you kind of
Really?
want to be close to that and just see it grow. Um,
Huh.
it's pretty cool. There's a lot going on here. Now it's not a hub like Berlin or Paris or London, but it's scrappy and it's got an extra appeal. And this is as someone who moved from the Bay Area to Little Rock and really grew into startups in Little Rock outside of Silicon
Hmm.
Valley, outside of the Bay Area. Like I'm born and raised in the Bay Area. I know it fairly well. Um, and then having the experience of moving away from California to the American South was formative, dramatic, learned a lot.
Hmm.
Um, and that gave me a whole different lens for how to like look at startup and tech hubs and other places in the world.
Oh,
Little
that's really
Rock
interesting.
is, yeah. So Arkansas is a surprisingly impressive place for tech and startup development right now. Like it's an interesting place to look. And then Portugal has some of the similar momentum that you saw there with a lot of extra support and momentum going behind it. Just being one thing that I love about Portugal is if you look at a map, look at especially a map of airline routes and all the places they could possibly go, all the connections across the entire world,
Hmm.
Lisbon is just right there at a hub. It touches everything.
Oh, nice.
So living here, being in Europe, you have this incredible access to the rest of the world that is almost unparalleled, which is a big draw for me. So those,
Epic.
yeah, there are things that would still have drawn me here, even if we hadn't been. But having been here, you watch one sunset at Kiosk Verde Lima, and that sort of sits with you. You don't step away from that.
Epic. Okay. Um, do you miss anything about the US?
Salsa. I miss salsa a lot, which is funny. If you go to a Latin speaking country and you say, I miss salsa, they're like, what are you talking about? We have tons of salsas. That just means sauce. And you're
Hmm.
just like, all right, thanks, Mexico. You messed this up for all of us.
Yep.
Um,
100%.
but yeah, so salsa, bottled salad dressing, hilariously. Like those are two of the things that have been a little bit challenging to find.
Really?
Um,
Hmm.
of all things, right? But
Bottled salad
that's,
dressing. Never would have thought that would be a thing.
yeah.
Um, okay, so if anyone is thinking about, you know, expatting, moving out, gonna go try this thing, right? I would love, one to, a handful, right? Like, I don't like the just one tip kind of thing, but things that people don't know to think about. If you were going to do it again, if you were going to, give me advice on how I should go do this, what would you be telling me to do? How does someone make it even something that they can consider?
Oh God. Yeah, not just one thing, right? Not to talk your head off. So if it's something you really want to do, just do it, for lack of a better piece of advice. Because that's where I'm
Okay.
coming at here. It's like you're never going to consider every possible angle. You're never going to know for sure it's the right choice. There are
Hmm.
upsides and downsides to anything you do. Even getting out of bed in the morning, there are
Oh
upsides and
yeah.
downsides to that. Obviously, it's a little bit harder than getting out of bed in the morning, but the decision making is not as different as you would think. Like, it is easier and harder than you could ever imagine it would be. It's really incredible living in a different place. Like, one of the best decisions I ever made was moving from California to Arkansas, which sounds insane.
Hmm.
If I had said that to myself before I'd done it, before I met my wife, I would have been like, nah. I remember she told me Arkansas the state motto is the natural state. And I'm from Northern California. I grew up in a redwood forest overlooking the Pacific Ocean. So I literally laughed, which I regret to this day, because Arkansas really is a beautiful state and we had a wonderful time there.
Hmm.
Um, but had I not just been like, okay, this is a possibility, I will be open to do it, let's just do it,
Hmm.
I never would have done either of these things. And they're two of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, easily. So if you're
Oh
thinking
wow,
about doing it, you know what? Try it.
that's
Um,
fair. Epic. Cool,
I think
man.
you were
So,
considering a move yourself at some point too.
like, I. We've kind of missed the window, I would think, right? My kid's in high school, and so she's got really cool relationships, and she's on the cheerleading squad and National Honor Society. And now, she's entrenched for like all really great, good reasons,
Sure.
So, it probably not until like this season is done if we're going to explore that whole thing. And even then, I
Yeah.
don't know that we would move. I mean, I like it just it feels beyond like a thing I can really kind of like put my head around, if that makes sense, just for me personally. So, um,
If you told me 2 years ago, a year ago was actually when we moved, which is nuts. If you told me 2 years ago that I would be giving my entire bookshelf to a local bookstore, I would also have thought that that was a ridiculous thing to say. Um,
okay.
yeah, but that was another driver here for us as well. Our kids are young. My
Mhm.
daughter just turned 7. She's my oldest. So this is a very good time for them to move. And we even thought we
100%.
might have missed the boat with her because 7 is up there. It's pretty
Yeah.
established. Yeah, there's more to unpack there, but I'll leave it there.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's fair. Um, okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about like customer success, right? Um, because we were talking before I turned on the recording that one of the big reasons that I moved over to sales was because I just wanted to kind of help people, but no one was really paying anything very well for like customer service, right? And that's where we had our conversation about customer success is actually different. And I like the proactive nature of it, right? Like to me, it's kind of more of like account management and less of like, let me remind you where the things are, which is what sometimes customer service is.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm really struck by the thing that you said a second ago that like it's like really big inside of SaaS. But do other lanes not really appreciate success in the same way that SaaS does? Is there a reason for that, or is it just because of like the data and the insights that people are able to get on like a technology platform that allows them to be so focused on taking input, taking advice, trying to find these levers to apply?
There are a couple different lenses for that. So the reason that customer success ends up being so big in SaaS is that SaaS is a fairly expensive kind of concept. You're talking about fairly high ticket products, depending on what market or what scale you're in. And these are things where you have to sell it once and then sell somebody on keeping it over multiple years over time.
Hmm.
And the more complex, the more expensive the contract is, the more important it is to make sure they know how to use it, make sure they know how to get value out of it, make sure they're using it year after year, understand how it's changing and how that impacts how they can use it.
Hmm.
So it's a nonstop onboarding. It's a nonstop implementation. You're rolling
Yeah.
out new features. You are reviewing how they're using it and see if you can help out with it. You're teaching them to get the best and more out of it over time as their use case changes, as the platform changes. So it is uniquely tied to SaaS because that's a product where that multi-year contract-based relationship is such a big part of it.
Interesting.
And it's also is very much a revenue generating tool, which is another distinction to make sure to point between customer service and customer success. Both of them are part of like the revenue generation of client experience or customer experience. Like that umbrella is hugely important.
Hmm.
Um, and a lot of the time I spend in my lane as customer success advocating for the other associated venues, making sure the support team is well supported and has what they need, making sure that they're heard, that that feedback is actually reaching the right people, making sure the product team gets direct feedback from customers, making sure the developers get a chance to advocate for how their timelines have customer use cases to support the things they want to do, making sure that they're aware of what's most important to customers, and making sure that all of that gets packaged and presented to leadership in a way that makes sense, that makes the business sense. Because all of this, customer success, client experience, it is first and foremost a revenue generating function, but generating revenue in the most positive, proactive way possible. So you don't just like somebody signs the contract, you just set them loose and just walk away.
Yeah.
That is not a good way to keep your customers on board. They're going to go with the next company in 6 months.
Hmm.
Um, so being there to kind of, you're playing defense against other competitors and other companies. You are building up a reliance and trust in a value system for your customers out of these products. So you're making sure that, of course, you want them to stay around, but you want them to stay around because it's doing the best possible work for them. It's like they're getting the best possible outcome.
Do you find that most people can connect marketing, sales, and this success? Because in my opinion, they're all tied very much together, right? And if you're not talking to people and understanding their use case and is this valuable and are they sharing it with other people and everything else like this, when they churn, it's gonna be upsetting for everybody involved because you're not really part of it, you know? And so I've long held this belief that if you're not talking to your clients or customers, you're probably not going to retain them. You're gonna lose them for any number of reasons. And so let's pause there. Are people aware that the things that are happening after the sale are important for marketing, sales, growth, reducing friction in growth? Or is that kind of the perspective that you're trying to kind of try to get people to see?
Short answer, no, people aren't aware of that. Longer answer, that is a big part of what customer success, and there's actually quite a few people in the field right now who are talking that up. There are a lot of people who do get it, who do
Hmm.
fully understand that the customer-centric business model isn't just customer success. It's kind of the entire packaging of everything.
Yeah.
It's not universal. And there is a pretty significant push and pull between the pure efficiency, finance focused side of the business and the kind of touchy feely, like whatever the customer wants side of the business. Those are your two
Hmm.
extremes.
That's
Um,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah. And the real function lies somewhere in the middle. But for me personally, that customer centric side is the most important piece because if you're doing sales, you don't want your CEO on TV calling all your potential customers stinky poo poo heads. Like if something like that is going on, it's going to hurt your sales.
Hmm.
If your marketing system is like all of our customers are dumb and we don't like them, that's going to hurt your sales. If
Hmm.
somebody logs into the platform and it doesn't work or they can't figure out how to use it, that's going to cost you sales. And all of this is tying revenue and the design of the product to be customer centric. And that's a big part of what I do day to day. And that's my time in customer success has taught me how important every single part of that picture is. Um, and why I keep getting drawn to customer success is that it's not about silos. Like you talked about churn hurting everyone, whereas sales is usually considered to be very separate from customer churn. You don't usually hear that talked about very often. Like customer retention is very rarely associated with your sales team. It is
Yeah.
connected and both
Yeah.
are impacted by it,
Hmm.
but it's very rare that you hear those put together in context, where
That's
really it
fair.
goes from the customer's first impression with the company and the product to their last, whatever that may be. Everything in between is all interconnected and all depends on each other. So we think
Hmm.
about, like LinkedIn Premium, for example. You're trying to cancel a LinkedIn Premium
Mhm.
subscription. The experience is miserable. And
Oh,
that's in the
yeah.
middle of your use case. Like you
That's
can't
one of my
contact
pet
support.
peeves.
Eh,
I hate
and
that.
it's designed to force people to stay on board, to like manhandle and like lock you in so you
Mhm.
don't churn because you can't, which is like, I'll just lock out my credit card to stop paying you guys. Like
100%.
that's
Yeah.
if you make me do it. And that is exactly the kind of work model that I try to work against. Because not only is that going to cost you people who are doing the trial or currently on it, like make it easy. Put your cancel button right there in the front. Say like, you can
Absolutely.
cancel if you want to. We're going to convince you why you don't.
Yeah.
Like that's the approach. Because like the burying it 9 screens deep where you have to like, provide a
It's one of
blood
my
sample in person is
it's one of my biggest pet peeves, right? Like you can sign up for just about anything, right? And everyone does all this effort and then oh you got to call us to cancel. And I'm always just kind of struck in those moments of like is this just like people over indexing on like ease of acquisition, or are they trying to be that like gym that's impossible to cancel and you got to send in a carrier pigeon and wait 3 days and all of that? Like I'm always thinking because like even like cable TV, like easy to sign up for telephone services, but they always want you to call in and jump through all these hoops and everything. And I like every time I'm like, are you guys just too excited? Or are you trying to make this as much of a pain as possible to try to like force people to stay? Neither
yeah.
one is
And
a really great reason,
yeah.
in my opinion, but I think the second one is worse. Like, if I feel like I'm being held, uh, yeah, I'm just going to go cancel the card for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. You just say stop payments on this and like chase me down if you want.
Hmm.
Um, Yeah, and that's the thing is I've mentioned that push and pull between the different decision-making processes. It's like we don't want to do churn, but we don't want to do customer support at any level, let alone customer success. We're just
Yeah.
going to make it hard for people to stop paying. And a lot of people, a shocking number of people, will just shrug and be like, whatever, I'll keep paying that because I don't want to deal with this. Like it works, unfortunately. That's why Rocket Money as a business actually has a business model is they'll cancel stuff for you.
Hmm.
Um, which is funny. But yeah, and the thing that's missed with that is that every single interaction you have with a customer is a marketing opportunity. If they have a truly great experience, they're going to tell other people about it. They'll talk up this tool. They'll use
Yep.
it more. Like they will actually share this. And if they have a truly negative experience, they will also share that. They'll take YouTube videos and Instagram videos and TikToks of how miserable the experience is, and that will become the association thing with your company name. And
100%.
I think that too many companies underestimate the harm that that does and underestimate the dollar value of genuinely happy customers because that has an actual value associated with it. And it's taken me a while to be able to say that in that blunt of terminology because I don't like saying like the customer is dollar signs, blah, blah, blah. But
Hmm.
there's more to it than that. It's about doing the best possible product and service as a company, of course, to make profit, but because it's the right way to do it, the right thing to do, and will give you the most successful long-term growth.
It shouldn't be difficult to leave, right? Because like
Right.
one of the ideas that I have is like if you have a mid experience, it's not great, but it's not bad, right?
Right.
If you don't make it easy to cancel, if you make it hard because you're just set on like you're the right thing and people should just stay, that mid experience, like they're not a raving fan, but they don't hate you. But if you make it rough on the exit, you
Yeah.
you make them hate you, right? You did it to yourself, in
And
many of these situations.
I'm
Um,
pretty sure that that's relatively recent. That's something software can do. There's some theory being taught somewhere that the go-to thing, and this is the funny thing, is when you see companies start making these decisions, it's coming from somewhere. There's
mhm.
some kind of
Oh yeah,
corporate
someone's
strategy
someone's
somewhere
pulling
that's
the
like,
strings.
this is
Yeah.
what you do. This is why you do it.
Hmm.
And so it's not just happening. People aren't stumbling upon this as an accident. So either it has worked and there is some financial incentive evidence like this increased your retention rate by X% and didn't look at the other factors um, that's out there somewhere. But that again is that push and pull where the most successful companies that have the best retention, that have the best profits year over year are the ones that don't do that.
Mm,
And the ones that have the opposite approach. Um,
100%.
but yes, it's strange that that's become more of an approach. And I always think of like Verizon, the phone provider, or Verizon or Comcast. I often conflate the two because they have the same logo and colors and behave the same way as businesses. Um, and just remember, like they'll give you the promotional deal, right? It's like for 3 months you have this deal, but then you have to call at the end to see what promotions are available, and we're going to
Yep.
automatically increase your bill after that time. And nobody likes that. Nobody likes that. And the
Nobody
only reason
likes
they get
that.
away with that is because the competitors do the same thing, which
Hmm.
is
Well, it's like when you go to the Zoom info like homepage, right? Like this is my favorite example of this. They know that they can be pushy and they're going to be like, give us your phone number and we'll call you. You don't get to see anything. And
right.
for a long time, because they were the biggest game in town, like, and it was funny because you would see people and they're like, God, I got to go through the Zoom info thing again. And they hated it but they were really the only thing thing in town, and now there's all these other options, right? And so now people are like, "Oh god, like, do I wanna go build my own thing, or do I wanna jump through all the flaming hoops of Zoom Info?" You know? So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's very interesting what happens whenever the market, for whatever it is, gets more complicated or complex, right? More mature, there's more options, there's more trade-offs.
Yeah.
Um, Switching gears for just a second, because we were talking about cool topics for this interview, and you said a line where you were talking about that an early client of yours was, kind of like your big struggle bus client, but through that relationship, you realized that they were actually your best client and had a lot of impact on like your business and how you work with people. And can you talk more about that? Like how long did it take for you to kind of change your perspective on them?
It I'm gonna pretend it took a while for me to come to that revelation. No, it honestly was fairly quick. And this wasn't just one customer. This was a story that repeated many times
Mm,
and in slightly different variations too. Um, but the first one that I remember a lot was actually my very first client ever. This is my first portfolio client. This is my first customer success client as an individual contributor. And it was passed to me. They were like, we've gone through the sales process. This is a difficult client. Like I was given this under the expectation this is a difficult client.
hmm,
Um, and so, of course, did the usual thing. But my number one thing was like, I will call this client. I will talk to them. I'll get my face on there. And then if they need anything, I will make sure that door is open. They know who to call by name and where to reach me. It's very clearly like, I am the channel. Whatever you have, throw it at me. We'll see. We'll go through it. And then it was almost immediately apparent that they had genuine questions. They didn't know who else to ask. They didn't know where to go. And so anytime they actually used this tool when they needed it, they got frustrated because they didn't understand how it worked.
mm, mm-hmm,
Um, and this was onboarding was good, but it had just missed some pieces that was like holding them up a little bit. So I
hmm,
did some product retraining. I talked to them about this, and it all became very quickly apparent with this client and all the other ones later that every single concern they had, everything that made them a difficult client, was something that came from a place of genuine concern. They got this tool because they wanted it to work. They needed this tool because it met something, it filled in a gap that they really felt and needed every single day. So
hmm,
they were actually, in most ways, a dream client because they told us what they needed it, when they need, or what they needed, when they needed it. And they talked to us about what features they'd like to see. They talked about what wasn't working. If there was a bug or some issue going on, they were the first ones to let us know.
hmm,
Now, you could easily categorize that as a difficult client because they did need extra attention. But in
hmm.
terms of the impact they had on the product and the team and the relationship building as a whole, they were a phenomenal client. And the rough edges were smoothed out over time with that relationship. And that was true every time. You have that client who comes in, they call a lot, they have a lot of questions, they're critical of the product, they're, putting up billboards outside your office where they're like, these guys suck. Bad example, that never happens. But I hope. But in every case, there's a case of genuine concern. There's something they're legitimately upset about, and they're upset about it because of something that happened. And in every single case, that is fixable. And I found out over time, this evolved, that the worst client, the absolute worst client, is the one who you never ever hear from.
Oh
They don't pick up
yeah.
the phone. You don't know who to
Yeah.
call. You don't know what's going on. You don't know if they're using the thing or not. Like knowing nothing is the worst thing. I
100%.
would rather, and I never had the customer that would like yell at me or curse me out or anything like that. That may have been tone and approach. I don't know, but that would be bad. That's a client you don't keep. That's not a bad
Yeah.
client. That's like, go away.
Mhm.
Um, but no, the worst clients I had, the difficult ones, the ones that I intentionally took on because other customer success manager team members had been struggling with them, like every single case, it turned out that they genuinely needed something. And once that was met, they were the very best clients. Like best feedback, best
Oh, man.
engagement, like, phenomenal. They were incredible. Like, and this is a big part of why I've stuck in customer success and why I like it so much, because
Yeah.
these are the people who would be left behind without customer success. These would
Oh
just
my
be like,
gosh,
oh,
yeah.
they're difficult. We're just going to push them on an AI bot and never see them again.
Oh,
And you
yeah.
could easily miss out on the value that they are able to contribute to the process and the company.
It's so funny because it sounds like this thing that I sometimes read. I work with a lot of founders, a lot of people who are going out on their own for the first time. And one things that like I sometimes hear from people is they'll take a call and then, I'm checking in with them. Okay, how was it? And they're like, well, God, they're just too early. They don't know what they want. And I'm like, okay, cool. So how was the conversation? Oh, like, like I got out of there as fast as I possibly could. And I'm like, why would you do that to yourself? Like, are you serious? They want you to be part of their decision-making process because they don't know what they're looking for yet, and
Yeah.
you're too good for that? Oh god. Like that seems crazy to think about, but you have to make the shift. You have to reframe this idea that these tickets are not an indication that they're a struggle. They're an indication that you're not meeting expectation. There's something amiss here, right? And I got to work on this project and like a similar thing happened, okay? Because they didn't really have success and they had a version of support, but as always is the case, and this is a lesson for anyone who's listening to this thing, if you do not give a great handoff past the salesperson when they have a question or a concern, they're going back to that salesperson. Like
Yeah.
they just are, right? And
Yeah.
I talk to CEOs all the time. They're like, I don't want my people talking to deals that they've already closed. Okay, great. Who else are they going to talk to? Right? If you're not giving them someone to go else and talk to, they're going to go back to where they're going to get help. And if there's
Yeah. The
comms
person I know.
involved,
Yeah.
that person is incentivized to keep this person on board and everything. And so CEO wanted to strip away account management from sales, right? And so we're talking about building out success and, figuring out ways to do it the right way. And a version of this started to show up. It was a very competitive space. And so the main value, you had to believe in a philosophy. And this
Hmm.
philosophy with this piece of technology unlocked the greatness. And it kind of came down to scheduling. You could allow your people to schedule in this tool, or you could schedule people in your tool. Now, the
Right.
other tool that we were poaching from, you didn't have to schedule anybody in the tool. They scheduled themselves. Okay. But our unique thing of greatness was that, like, hey, when you schedule your people, we can then really help you and everything. But there was all this recurring friction around this one point, and no one could really understand it. And these people are just terrible users and everything. And we dug into the data. They're all coming from the same competitor. And
Okay.
so we do some customer feedback calls like, okay, what's happening? And we find this thing that everyone is coming from this one competitor. Well, that competitor lets you do it this other way, right? So then finding this friction, we were able to, talk about it in the sales call, right? And then we were also able to strip it out into like a webinar that marketing could talk about of like, hey, here's the greatness that unlocks the main value of this thing.
Okay.
But if we weren't collecting that feedback, if we weren't looking at it as opportunity to improve this whole cycle,
Yeah.
it everyone just would have continued to hate the salespeople that are closing these deals that then become struggle buses in delivery, you know.
Yeah.
But goals
The
aren't going
bad fit
away, sales
customer.
side,
Yeah.
right? I'm curious about your definition of this thing. What is actually a struggle bus client versus what is an opportunity?
So I did have one client that was a little bit more difficult than most. This is someone who was genuinely concerned about how the product was presented, and they had a like a CMS. They had a website builder tool built into the product,
Mhm,
and where they struggled most with was decision making. So they would rebuild the page. They'd spend a bunch of time doing that. They would ask
mhm,
for help as they did that, and I would step in and help them walk through that page. The next day, they'd have a completely new idea for how they wanted to do this. And say
mhm,
they'd redo it again, and they'd jump in and ask for help. And this went on for a couple of weeks here. And there is a point where you do have to set up boundaries. And one of the conversations right now in customer success is that customer success managers need to be comfortable and confident about when and where to say no and to say it. Because there are times where there's things that just you can't do, where you have to do the best training you can, do video recordings, give the resources to the customer, make
mhm.
the judgment call of when it makes sense to keep doing the support you're doing versus guiding them towards a different solution that's going to be a little bit more effective long term.
Yeah.
And you can't always fix that. And that can be a big challenge. So you do need, there has to be that push and pull. And I think I talk a lot about push and pull, but that level
Mhm,
of like, I am here to help you. I'm here to be a resource, but also let's work on a good solution here that's mutually beneficial and gets us to your resolution. Like I'm
hmm,
going to lead and follow. And that again is one of those key differences between customer success and customer support is it is very much a consultative approach. Like you're a consultant. You're not just
yeah.
a help agent, just a
Mhm,
help agent. I have infinite respect for people who do customer support. Support
same.
is hard,
Yeah,
um, and usually thankless. And that's actually the worst part. Um,
100%.
yeah. So I always advocate for my support folks and I hope they have the resources they need so that,
Awesome. I started out in tech support, like way
yeah.
back in the day for like Roadrunner broadband, like way back in the day. So yeah, it's a hard job trying to navigate people who are pissed off, mad,
Yeah.
ready to jump down anyone's throat because they're stuck. They're not, it's what it comes down to. It's a very tough job. Um,
Okay.
Please, what you got?
Before we move on from this point too much, I do want to go ahead and also shout out Dan Reese.
Dan
Um,
Reese.
Dan Reese of Paperturn. This guy is so cool. He's a super nice guy, super hard worker in sales. He was an account executive for a long time.
Hmm.
And he actually, I always talk about him having invented customer success because he'd never seen
Hmm.
a customer success function. He didn't know what it was. He wasn't aware of it at all. And similar to the story you just outlined a minute ago, he had customers that would come in. And the first thing that he did in the sales perspective is he became an expert on the product, on the platform.
Yeah.
And so after sales, when people had questions about how to use this stuff, they came to him and he answered their questions and had this back and forth. And his bosses, much to their credit, immediately noticed that his retention, his close rates, his upsell rates, his referral rates were just like through the roof compared to everyone else on the team. And when he talked about his workflow and what he was doing, they saw immediately the value of that post-sales support that he was doing and
Yeah.
how much revenue that was generating that would have been missed otherwise. And so he actually is now the head of his own customer success team that he built based on these experiences coming from a sales side. And he's gotten pretty involved in customer success since, but it's just such a cool story of this like natural development of customer success organically from that sales perspective. That's a cool story.
I love that. I mean, I think one of the things that I always hear about when I'm talking with like founders is like it's like hard to find good help and these very
Right.
old folksy kind of things and you just can't get people to care and but like no one's really thinking about we're not incentivizing really care right
Right.
now. Now sales gets a lot of incentive, right? And marketing gets some incentive and sometimes but like customer support and customer success like largely doesn't, right? But if you want someone to go above and beyond, you need to pay them to go above and beyond, right? Like oh, I have a question for you. Do you think that success should have team comp, solo comp, no comp? What are your thoughts on that?
It's pretty consistent now. There's been a lot of advocacy in the department from a lot of leaders that it should be compensated like sales. So you get retention comp, and
I
it's
agree with
usually
that.
team
Yeah.
comp.
Hmm.
There's bonuses for individual performers, but then it's based usually on retention and upsells. Um, and I think that's a healthy way to do it. It makes sense.
I
It's an
agree.
extremely challenging job that takes a lot of time and a lot of different specialties. You want really good people, and this is a long-term, close relationship with your customers.
Hmm.
Turnover on your customer success team is bad. Um,
Oh, that's
Not to put too
interesting.
fine a point on it, because like if you've got somebody who's been the sole contact for 140 of your top customers for like 5 years
Yeah,
and
that
they
makes sense.
leave,
Yeah.
that's a really painful turnover, and that puts that entire portfolio at risk. So this is definitely a department to take seriously and support long term and like really take good care of. Now the downside to that though is that you mentioned support getting comp. Like in customer support, the downside that I see is that most of the time, what's supported is exactly the same thing that AI agents are rated on. It's close rate.
Mm,
It's how quickly you answer these tickets, how quickly these people go away. It
yeah.
does not actually rate the quality of the support or the quality of the outcome. It's or what led people there in the first place. Like you hear that NPS survey, like rate that you call,
It's like the wrong
again,
data point.
Verizon. Yeah,
Hmm.
you call Verizon and it's like, how would you rate your conversation with this agent? And it's like, you know what? The agent did their best, but your guys' business policy is just hamstringing me here and I don't like you at all.
Yep.
But you're only letting me either get this agent fired or not. And like,
Hmm.
that's terrible. And that again is a pretty consistent industry standard. So
That is very like I never really thought about the impact of that, that probably kind of black box, right? I mean, even if
yeah,
they're trying to document and everything, like if you've got someone doing one role for a very long time and it's deeper work, they're gonna have insights that just don't hit the
yeah,
lexicon, unfortunately. I know a guy actually right now. He built success and now he's leaving because he started to feel like he didn't really have the seat at the table anymore. That he was just kind of getting like ramrodded and stuff like that. And so hadn't really thought about the impact to the rest of that whole, revenue operations org and stuff like that, right, with that
yeah.
person leaving. But that's going to be a big hole to fill for them. That'll be fascinating.
Yeah, and
Um,
there's a cascade effect too, where you've got, say, all of your CSMs have 100 customers. You got five of them. There's
mhm,
500 total. One leaves. That means that all of those customers from that one have to be spread to the others. So all of them now have a bigger portfolio. Every single customer who lost that relationship that they really valued and liked is already a negative sentiment. They take a pretty hard hit on that in sentiment,
oh
just
yeah,
in general, even if nothing
hmm,
else changes. So you've got a more stressed out person who has a bigger portfolio who just got dumped a bunch of high risk customers, all of whom could have the cascade effect of becoming public detractors. So
Mhm.
they'll go out and say like, this company lost this person I really liked. I'm very upset about that. They suck. I'm looking at the competitor.
Yeah, man. And then the other part of it is sales, and I'm curious if you see the similar thing here. Like sales leadership, right? If a sales leader leaves, they're going to have some people that are going to go with them, right? And
Yeah.
that sales leader also has some people that they're looking towards of like maybe people that they can bring with them and stuff like that. So in your situation, that one leader leaves, everyone gets reshuffled, everyone now has more. That leader probably is also eyeing a couple of those people as like maybe people that they can bring over as well. Does that happen and on this side of the fence as well?
It's very common there's a cascade where if somebody's let go or somebody leaves, very common, it's much higher chance that somebody else on the team will leave for whatever reason as well.
Hmm.
Whether it's because of the increased workload or existing problems that drove the first person to leave, then are exacerbated by the larger portfolio that pushes them out,
Uh,
or like the customers just are that much more upset. Like that can kind of set the whole house of cards tumbling down. It can take out half the team,
yeah,
which
wild.
again could take down the whole company.
So switching gears, this is rapid fire question time. Okay, so your answers don't have to be rapid. I'm curious if a founder is running a business, how do they need to be thinking about success and support early stage? When do they seek you out? Do they try to do it themselves? Like, what are the tips around success and support if you're a brand new founder?
The super quick way I've seen this summarized is call your effing customers back. Like that's customer experience in a nutshell is you talk to your customers. Just talk to your customers. If you're an early stage founder,
Yeah.
just do that. Talk to your customers or have somebody on the team who will talk to your customers. That is the single
Hmm.
standing pillar of customer success. Every single example we talked about, like bad user experiences, nearly all of them could be boiled down to the customer has no one they can talk to. Like, not really. They don't have a place to reach out. They don't have someone who will answer their
Wow.
questions.
Yeah.
They don't have an actual way to reach the company to help kind of fix the problems they're having. So call your effing customers back is the guiding star of customer success. That becomes more complicated as the company gets bigger, but that still is the piece to keep in your
Mhm.
mind. And it's not just have a like NPS or CSAT scores. If you're just getting customer feedback on a 0 to 10 scale, like dumpster fire. You have to have some sort of free-form feedback. You have to have some way where they're able to communicate complex feedback outside of just the 0 to 10 scale.
Hmm.
Because if you talk about the trust building, like one of the best resources I had is I had customers where if they were pitched by a direct competitor who sat down and said like, hey, this is what we're offering, this is what we're doing, here's our cool new tool, my customers would tell me because we had that established relationship. Like
Yeah.
that level of opposition research does not happen without that. And it not only made them resistant to
Yep.
being pitched by another company, but they would talk to us first. We'd have a full conversation about why they were tempted, what was being offered. And that's huge.
Yeah. If you're not maintaining the relationship, you should not be expecting any kind of insight. You should just be expecting like the
Yeah.
churn email, like, "Hey, I got to wrap things up. I got to go with a competitor," and then everyone wants to get into like, "Okay, well, can you tell me why?" We've
Right.
missed the window, right? And no one, and like if we miss the window in that way, we're probably not even going to get like super accurate feedback, right? They're going to get all the flaws,
Yeah.
none of the greatness, because now they're just mad, and rightfully so in some
Yeah.
instances. So, um, and I know you're on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
We follow each other there with all the everyone sharing business ideas, dogma, mantras, right, folksy wisdom, if you will. What is the lesson about business that you can really appreciate now when you see it on LinkedIn, but you had to learn it the hard way?
This is fairly fresh since our last conversation. One of the best things I've seen in a long time is a post from Joe at Post Hog. And I really hope I'm getting his first name right and I forget his last name, but I'm pretty sure it's Joe Martin at Post Hog. I got it. Look at that. Um, he
Look
shared
at
a
that.
screenshot of their marketing email that they sent to existing customers. And it is a master class. This like very casual, cutesy, but like brilliantly designed. It's a single sheet. It says, this is a marketing email in parentheses, sorry. We sell stuff. Sometimes we have to sell stuff. This is that in like a single paragraph at the top. There's the cartoon hedgehog, but it's a single page graphic, says outright, this is a marketing email. And then they've got 4 products, and each one has the name of the product, a like 4-word thing about what it does, and then a 2-line about who it's for. That's it. It's this
Hmm.
little bullet list of like, these are the things we have. This is who it's for, and if you like it. Bottom, there's a little addendum, and then the unsubscribe button is right there. Not buried. It's underlined as clearly a clickable link. You can see it. Every single thing about this is completely exposed, trust-based, like, we know people don't like this, but we have to do it. Here's the best way we can do it that respects your time and shows that we thought about how you're going to feel about this when you get it. Like all of that, it is so
Hmm.
good. And I cannot stop talking about it.
So I love that because I'm a nerd about great emails and people being kitschy and authentic and everything. What's the lesson you took away from
Another
that
piece about
post?
that is in Joe's text of this, he also mentioned that it is not terribly popular. Like, not a lot of people click on it, not a lot of people open it, not a lot of people click on the CTA button in the bottom. But what's really
Hmm.
notable about that is they still do it that way anyway. Most companies would take that and be like, people aren't opening this. It's not getting the sales we need. Like, how do we force them
Yeah.
to click on this? How do we convince them to open the email? Clickbait
Hmm.
title, that unlabeled
Hmm.
letter from your bank that looks scary, and you open it and it's like, we'll give you a 30% interest
Oh
rate
yeah.
if you will have a new credit card. Nobody wants that. It doesn't give you
Yeah.
more sales. It makes people less trust your outreach. Makes them less likely to open your messages. Um, yeah.
100%.
So that
Like,
not only the transparency they put into this, but why they do it that way and why they keep doing it that way, even though the numbers are unimpressive, really stood out as like very,
yeah,
very, yeah,
I
that's
love that.
top marks.
One of the big things that like I didn't like I spent 10 years in corporate and I sold for like AT&T and Chase and stuff, and so like I had big brand behind me and I never really appreciated it until I went into like
Right.
no brand, right? Super small businesses and things like that. And that's where I got super, I guess, nerdy about all of this stuff and really kind of enjoying it. And you're right on, right? I've been in teams, I've been in calls to where, well, we're not getting enough
Yeah.
opens on these emails. Okay, what can we do to like get the open rate higher, right? And maybe we should just make the goals around the reality of the situation. Like maybe we shouldn't be trying to find a way to candy coat this thing so that way people often feel baited and switched because we're trying too hard to obfuscate them, and just be
Yeah.
real with people, right? Like we could just go find more people to add to this list and then see if they're going to open this email, or we can try to play with fancy languages and titles and different things like this so that way more like, but both of
Yeah.
these are just time, right? Like we can spend our time working on one or we can spend our time working on the other. But you're right on, most people wouldn't continue to send that thing unless it was like really important and
Yeah.
intentional to them, right? Because the data would tell them to go
Right.
do
And
something else.
yeah,
That's
and
really
it's also
fascinating.
why would the data tell you to do something else? Like, people aren't going to open your sales email and be really excited about it. People don't really like being sold to. And this fully acknowledged that,
Hmm.
which was incredibly effective. And that
Yeah.
builds trust. Like, your existing customers, they're like, you fully acknowledge this. You understand what this is and that we don't like it. You said that. This is great. I appreciate it. And then down the
Hmm.
road, when they are interested in shopping from you, they'll remember that experience and come back. Whereas if you did the clickbaity thing, they will
100%.
actively be exploring your competitors. Even if they're buying something you do the best,
Oh yeah.
even if they're looking at yours, they will be looking at others. Whereas the honest approach is a better way to make sure they come to you first.
Yep. I just tell everybody to
Yeah.
play face up, like deal with the reality of the situation. No one is ever going to get a
Yeah.
100% yes line. Like it just doesn't exist, right? So I was at a marketing conference a long, long time ago, and this guy was talking about this idea. It was a CRO thing, right?
Chief Revenue Officer, right?
Conversion rate
Ah, okay.
optimization marketing stuff. No, the
Oh,
other CRO, and he was like, he goes, like he opened it with, and he goes, guys, like sometimes it's too good to be true, right? And if we're dealing with skeptical people, like I might tell you that I'm going to give you a Lambo if you click on this page, right? It doesn't
Asterisk.
mean you believe me,
Yeah.
right? Exactly. Yeah, for sure. And I was just like, whoa. So like, even if it's like too good to be true, people will look for a reason not to go. So like that, I was forever changed after that thing because I was like, oh my God, the idea of trying to get 100% yes is just stupid. Like, it's just not ever going to happen,
Yeah.
you know? So we have to sift well, right? And in my opinion, most of selling is like sifting, right? Like, let's work on this now, maybe later, and
You right.
probably
Those are
never,
the buckets.
right? 3 buckets.
Yeah.
Those are the buckets. Why would we keep chasing this thing if we don't align on the core philosophies, right? If there's no value for him, we're
Yeah.
just being pests, right? Um, Last question. For someone who's going to go off tomorrow, start something, whether it's, consulting or an agency or a SaaS business or anything. What is your word of warning or nugget of advice?
I mean, they're kind of the same. It's just do it. Just get started. So, and this is one of the things I've really enjoyed about LinkedIn is I've had this weirdly front row seat to a lot of people building in public, both startups or consultants, individuals, whatever. And one of the best parts about it is seeing somebody say like, hey, I'm putting out this newsletter. It's a broken link. I'm putting out this thing. Oh, rebrand next week. Like watching that process of them experimenting and trying, but starting so that they even know what's broken, so they even know what's not working, so they can improve on it
Yeah,
is the only way you're actually going to succeed. There will never be a perfect launch. There's never going to be this perfect design. Just do it and you will get better every
100%.
single time that you do it. And that's sometimes the hardest thing for people. Um, I talk to founders all the time who don't want to launch, don't want to talk to customers too soon because they don't think they're ready, which is true, but
Mhm.
you still have to start somewhere, and not starting is a guaranteed way to fail.
Well said. Now, if people want to come hang out with you, right, where should they go? Is LinkedIn the best place? Is there another place you like to hang out with people? Where should we send people?
LinkedIn's the best place to find me, and I can funnel other people to other places from there. But LinkedIn, and then if you search for the otter emoji, you'll find me. That's one of my little unique monikers. But I'm on LinkedIn. DMs are open.
Her
Like happy to talk to people. Yeah, I really enjoy just talking to people about work. It turns out I love talking shop, which is why I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. So yeah,
same. Like, it's so weird because, like, since I wear a sales title, a lot of
yeah,
people have their walls up, but the only reason I am here is because I got to network with a lot of people that were open to sharing their path and their mission and me realizing that I was
right.
overthinking the problem, right? And so now I reach out to people. I'm a big networker and I'm like, "Hey, you wanna connect? You wanna talk some shop?" And it's so funny that everyone's like, "John, you're a sales guy. You just want to sell me." And it's like, well, you're jumping the gun a little bit. I don't even know if you're tall enough to ride this ride. I was just going to network with you, but no worries, right? If my title and role offends you that much, we don't have to
Yeah,
network. It's
it's like
totally
here's a
okay,
catalog, but
right?
let's get back to the topic at
Um,
hand.
and like, dude, I used to get so mad at those situations because they'd be like, "Dang it, I'm one of the good ones. I'm not here to sell you." And then after putting yourself out there for a while and you get all
Yeah,
the cold outreach and you get all the DM spam and you get all the automated stuff and everything, now it's just like, okay, I get it. I definitely do. And you don't know me from anybody. And you're also just like not
yeah,
naturally a networker, which is another part of the conversation. Some people they enjoy it and other people haven't found their joy or their lane in it. And so they just kind of avoid it. But I think if you're a founder and you're not networking, you're probably
yeah.
not going to
You're
make it.
missing out on a lot by not networking, and that's also practice. Every single time you make a new introduction, every conversation you have is practice
100%.
to be comfortable pitching when you need to pitch, or comfortable when somebody comes at you with a tough question.
Hmm.
Like just the more you stumble and fall on your face and get back up, the better prepared you'll be for the really hard stuff.
Absolutely. Very well said, man. So, Noah, thank you so much for coming in and doing this interview with me. I really do think that this is going to help a lot of people because I just see so many people thinking they're not thinking about how to keep people. They're just thinking about can we get the money?
Yeah,
Can we get the money? And depending upon what kind of business you're trying to run, it's not really about what you can close. It's
yeah,
about what you can keep. And so, anyone who's trying to go down that lane, I think we have a lot of hopefully very actionable value for them. So, thank you so much for coming on and doing
yeah.
this, man. I really
Absolutely. I
appreciate
appreciate
it.
the time.
Awesome, man. Well, enjoy the rest of your evening.